Welcome back to Garage 512, everybody. So the purpose of today's video is to kind of do a comparison. Yeah, not exactly the same DAs, but comparison between what LMR's hub dyno registered for my car in terms of real horsepower and torque versus a traditional in-ground dynojet. So I'm over at ECC Tuned ATX. This is where I had the X6M tuned. So I haven't been up here since then, but it's up the street from my buddy Justin, who's going to be doing the PPF and ceramic coating. I'll be taking it to him after the dyno. So today's video is really just to see what a traditional what a traditional in-ground dyno registers for this car in comparison to the LMR hub dyno. I will post both videos and the dyno numbers associated with those guys. So without further ado, let's get into this.
I guess the white smoke is all right.
let's take a look at what happened at LMR on their hub dyno. Okay, so remember, there was no change in tune, but lots of different factors are going on here. 2 different dynos, 2 different days, 2 different air densities, and number 4, 2 different correction factors. So let's start with the 2 different dynos. So one's a hub dyno at LMR. I've never been on one of those before. There's no traction issue because it hooks up directly to the hub itself. So you don't have to worry about wheels spinning if it's making a shit ton of power and maybe spins off, loses some contact off the dyno, in-ground dyno wheel. You don't have those issues. LMR did tell me that their dyno does rate a little higher than, say, Dynojet. But be that as it may, it makes what it makes. But the point of the video is just to show you that no 2 dynos are going to record, even within Dynojet to Dynojet, they're not going to show the same numbers. Okay, but we got a lot of different things going on here. So 2 different dynos. Dynojet is the in-ground one that ECC has. LMR has the hub dyno. 2 different days, 2 different air densities, right? So we're going to take a look at the air density percentages because I have numbers for those. But LMR uses a correction factor. They use SAE. It's a different type of correction. I don't know the math on that. And then ECC, the place where I had the in-ground dyno, the Dynojet, they use STD, which tends to, rate a little higher. But, even with respect to Dynojet to Dynojet, even if you've got STD to STD, they're not going to be the same. They were not the same with my last stroker motor either. So lots of things going on here, lots of variables. So let's look at the DA, specifically the air density percentage, okay? Because they are very different from what was going on in Houston when LMR ran the car and when I had it run on the Dynojet just the other day. So okay, so the air density percentage shows how much of the actual air density or, mass of air per volume compares to a standard condition. And for all practical purposes, what does that actually mean? Well, if it's greater than 100%, then we're talking really dense air. So the air is tighter, more oxygen molecules are condensed. That gets pushed into the combustion chambers. So that makes for a bigger explosion, more power, more lift. If it's less than, and by the way, greater than 100% is what we're about to see that I had at ECC. But less than 100%, which is what I had at LMR, you've got thinner air. So fewer oxygen molecules go into the combustion chamber. So that's going to make less power, right? So what's interesting is the LMR dyno made more wheel horsepower, right? And less torque. And let's take a look at their numbers right here. So you can see their last run, unlike the video that I showed at the beginning of the video, that made slightly less, but this was their final run. So this was the Hero dyno graph. So it makes 630 wheel horsepower and 552 wheel torque. Okay, but that is at a air density of, here we go, 96.8%. So a lot less than 100%. So if we compare that to the ECC dyno day, okay? So we're basically talking 97% there. I used Google because ECC didn't have that air density percentage on their dyno, so I just pulled up what it was at CODA. And CODA, we're looking at 102%. Well, actually, 102 point, yeah, depending if it, with or without water vapor. But let's just say 102 and compare that to 96, right? So we're talking a 6% difference in terms of air density. So it's kind of a head scratcher, right? Because the air density was much higher here in Austin, and I made less wheel horsepower, but a shit ton more torque, right? It's really kind of all over the place, right? So what does it mean? It don't mean shit, okay? Just to be honest, I think there's kind of two types of people that really care about dyno graphs. One is the guy that just wants to brag, right, and show off. And then you got the kind of guy that actually wants to use the dyno as a measuring tool, which is really what it should be used for, right? I mean, we all like to brag and shit, but, let's be honest. There's a lot of that going around on the internet. Well, and I'm not going to mention certain dynos that, just clearly are just crazy high. I'm like, I don't understand. It does not compute. But you know what? I don't have to. That's not my car. I'm the guy that would use this dyno as a measuring tool. And for those kind of guys, that's useful. You need a baseline to know where you started at. So if, like, I've got an MSD intake manifold, right? So I've got longer runners. That's going to produce more torque. That's what I care about because my use case is for the track, road courses in particular, not quarter mile and half mile and, 1 mile tracks where, you've got plenty of time. My power is in the middle. I live under the curve, right? So when I shift, I'm in my power band, which is what I want. If I'm at CODA and I'm going into turn 1 and I'm in second gear, and I'm shifting into third, I'm already in my power band, when I'm shifting. That's my use case. All right. But, if I decide to change from the MSD to a BTR, which has shorter runners, I'm going to make way more horsepower, I suspect, at higher RPMs. Okay. But I'm going to make less torque because of the shorter runners on the BTR. Depends on what you care about. All right. I'm not trying to brag about dyno numbers. I care about what that car makes, 60 to 130, which is really, no pun intended, where the rubber meets the road, right? I don't care what. I've seen people make less power on their dyno sheets, right? They're comparing, well, I made this and I made that. And then they go out and race on the street. And the guy that had the lower numbers whooped the other guy's butt, okay? That's what matters. Get out there and race, right? This ain't dyno racing. it really isn't, right? I hope to get out there and get some 60 to 130 times pretty soon. I want to do that at a quarter mile track. I've got my dragging. I want to do it safely, so I'm going to record a video of my 60 to 130 when I get out to Dallas and run the car out there. But that's what matters, right? So keep that in mind. Don't worry about all that dyno graph racing stuff. Just to wrap up. So just like you want a baseline to know how much power that power mod gave you, right? You're going to want to do the same thing for your PSAs. I get a physical every year. I suggest you get a physical every year. That way you've got a baseline for your PSAs, right? I feel like I only survived prostate cancer because I had a baseline. I've been tracking my PSA since I was 42. Okay. But go to the doctor, get your physical every year, and have that doctor check that PSA box on your blood form. They will forget. I've had to remind every one of my doctors before I left, hey, did you check that PSA box on the blood form? I mean, I knew to do that before I was even pre-med. Okay. And this isn't a flex. I am not a doctor. All right. But I was doing my PSAs, getting those checked every year when I was just 42, just because I knew even back then that I needed a baseline, right? So I can track this stuff and recognize the unusual spike, if and when it ever happens. And it did happen. So 0 to 4 is considered normal for most people. But if you don't have a baseline and your first PSA number comes back and it's a 3, which is in range, you might think I'm all good. But what if you had checked last year and your number was a 2? That's a full point jump, right? In my opinion, These, and if you look at my chart, and I'll show you in a second, there should not be whole number jumps. They should be in decimals. So, but if you had a baseline, or even just from the year before, and it was a 2 and you got a 3 this year, I'm here to tell you, go see a doctor, because that's not normal. That's a big jump, okay? So consider that. So as I said, I'm not a doctor, but I survived prostate cancer in 2024. And I had a baseline. So I know I was able to recognize that unusual jump, and I went to a doctor and got, did a deep dive on that. If you look at my chart here, you can see most of the numbers are in decimals in terms of their jumps. And then you see I forgot to get tested. Actually, I didn't forget. I went to the physical in 2022, but I forgot to remind the doctor to check that box. All right. And so I don't have any numbers from 2022, but that was a pretty big jump from 2021 to 2023, as you can see. So it was, it went up to 6, which is crazy. I really feel bad that I didn't have any numbers from 2022. I'm really curious if it was a big jump in 2022. I'll never know. But I still caught it in enough time. So again, whole number jumps, not okay. Go see a doctor. So get your PSA baseline and remember to tell that doctor to please check that box. So if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe and share it out to your friends, family. It helps me promote the channel. It helps me promote prostate cancer awareness, which is really the whole point of the channel. I love talking about cars, but the message is really what gets me to keep doing this stuff, right? So please like and subscribe and share it out, please. And thank you again for tuning in.